Are you frustrated with the cost to dry clothes in a conventional electric clothes dryer, but don't have time to hang sock after sock on the clothesline, or like the feel of the clothes feeling like boards when you take it off the clothesline? Hi, my name's Elsa, and I live in a dry climate, so I wanted to try something different. What I came up with, I call the desert dryer, which is just a regular dryer, but we're not using heat to dry the clothes. Instead, we're using the air from a fan blown in the door. This method will work best if you live in a dry climate, but it'll work pretty much anywhere. It'll just take a little longer to dry clothes if you live in a more humid climate. Believe it or not, the time it takes to dry my clothes in my conventional electric dryer is the same amount of time that it takes to dry out here with my desert dryer, but at a fraction of the cost. If you'd like to learn how to do it, I will show you what I did. First, I advertised for an old gas dryer that still had a functioning drum motor and exhaust motor. I wanted a gas dryer so that I could put it outside where the humidity is the lowest and plug it into a regular 120 volt outlet. You can see the 120 plug. This is the kind that'll plug into anything outdoors. You can also do it with your existing dryer indoors, as long as your dryer has an air dry function where it doesn't actually heat the air, and you don't mind if you're increasing your home's humidity a bit, because this process will increase it a little bit. In the winter, that's not so bad. In the summer, that's why I have it outside. I found a free gas dryer, so I set it up on my patio. You'll probably want to put it in a place that you can keep clean so you don't just bring dust from the ground into the dryer. The first thing I needed to do after making sure the dryer wasn't plugged in was modify the door switch that turns off the dryer when the door is open, since the door will be open during use. So to do that, you'll need to lift the top of the dryer up. First, you'll need to take the lint filter out and remove the 2 screws underneath that. Then to open up the top of the dryer, you push your screwdriver in and release the latches on the front edge. I've already done this, but this is how you do it. This is a Kenmore. If you have a different type of dryer, it may open up in a different way. Will you need the door switch available to quickly turn the dryer on and off to check on the dryness of the clothes? If you're using the dryer outdoors like this one, I found that an easy way to tell the clothes are dry is to check the exhaust air coming out the back. If it feels cool, then that means that water is still evaporating from the clothes, so the load isn't dry yet. But if the temperature of the air is as warm as the surrounding temperature, it's done and you can turn it off. Using this method, I found I did not need to have my door switch available on my outside dryer. So to make sure that the door switch stays closed as if the door is in place, I just found a little piece of wood that could slide between the door switch and the inside of the dryer. And I just shoved that down in there, so now the dryer thinks that the door is closed. Now if you do this, and to turn off the dryer, you will need to use the dial on the front to turn it off. For an outside application like this, not having exposed wires in case it should rain or something is probably a better choice. If you're modifying an indoor dryer where the exhaust air is ducted out of the house, you won't be able to feel the exhaust air to tell when the load is dry. So in that case, you might want to move your door switch to the top of the dryer so you can quickly turn the dryer off to check the clothes mid-cycle. But as this is an electrical circuit, I don't recommend you do this if you have children or pets that might mess with it. But if you do decide to do it, here's what I did. You can see I've put it on the outside, and then I use a high-tech brick to keep the switch down when I use it. If you decide to move your door switch, first make sure your dryer is unplugged. All dryers are a bit different inside, so from the outside, look for the door switch in the rim of the door opening and then unscrew the bolts that are holding it in place. You can see where this one is. I've already kind of started taking out the screws, so I'll finish that and then show you what it looks like. So I finished taking out the screws in the door latch, and if you look up here and down inside, you can see where that is. And you take that, and fortunately my wires on this one were long enough that I could just take it outside of the lid. My dryer happens to have a gap that I could run the wires between. I also put some magnets on either side. I don't know if you can see it here, either side of the wire, so that when the lid is down, I don't even touch these wires, because that would be dangerous. The other thing you could do is drill a hole through the side of the dryer and just run the wires out the side if you'd like to do that. But make sure that your wires are protected, because you don't want them coming in contact with live wires while you're doing this. After you've put the lid back down, you can see how this doesn't affect my wires because of those magnets and the gap that I had. I put my switch up here on top, and then I'm just going to put a brick right on that switch so that it will stay running when the door is open. Next, you'll need to determine the best way to keep your clothes from tumbling out while the dryer is running. First, check to see if you can just put a fan directly in front of the dryer opening with the door open, or if you need to make a net door. If you use a large box fan like this one, which actually covers up the opening really well, I just set it on top of a cardboard box, put a bungee cord just to make sure it doesn't vibrate away. This would work great. However, this is on my indoor dryer, and it would raise the humidity in my house in the summer, so that's why I use the outdoor one. But in the winter, I'll end up using this one. If this works for you, all you have to do is toss in a load of laundry, and then you switch it to air dry on your dryer. You turn on the fan, you turn on the dryer, and you get dry clothes. Make sure your switch, your door switch, is down. Here's their high-tech brick, keeping my door switch down, and that's pretty much all there is to it. The gas dryer that I've put outside has a rectangular opening that isn't a good match for my fan shape. I could put the box fan directly up against the opening, like I did with my indoor dryer. Let's see how that is. However, it takes a little longer to dry the clothes because of the air blockage. So what I did for the outside dryer is I made a net door, looks like this, that I can put in front of the opening, and then I can mount my box fan at an angle, like that, so that I can maximize the air going into the dryer while also keeping my clothes from tumbling out. So if your dryer opening is larger than your fan or a different shape, you'll probably want to make a net door, and I'll show you how to do that next. To make the net door, look around and see what kind of scraps you have laying around the house that you could repurpose. I actually had some aluminum angle from another project, so I just took a piece and I bent it into the shape of my door. I just cut the flanges and bent it. I took a little piece of the angle at the end and just closed off the rectangle. You can see how I did that. It doesn't have to be fancy, and this actually worked pretty good, but you can use wood scraps, you can use an old picture frame, anything that roughly fits that size. It doesn't have to be exact, it just needs to be able to block the clothes from falling out of your dryer. Once I had my frame put together and I checked to make sure it fit pretty well, I drilled holes about every 2 inches around the frame using a drill just a little bit bigger than the nylon cord this cord that I happen to have a little bit bigger than the cord to make my net out of. The goal is to make the openings as large as you can, but not too large where the clothes can come tumbling out. You don't need to use cord. You could use fishing line or wire or anything that you've got on hand. You could even maybe use chicken wire, make a wooden frame and attach the chicken wire. I think that would work as well. The one thing I wanted to do with this nylon cord is I put a piece of Scotch tape. After I deburred these holes, I put a piece of Scotch tape on the inside and the outside, and then I just poked a hole through the tape to give my cord a little bit of resistance to getting cut on the aluminum where I drilled the holes. Now my frame is ready for the cord. One thing I've learned is I can take the cord and put it down on some Scotch tape like that, and then wrap it up as good as you can. What I'm going to do here is just make it very stiff so that it's easy to poke through as you're making the net, and then you just trim it with scissors when you're done to make it into kind of like a point. Trying to make a point here. And now you're ready to start weaving it through your net door. When you're ready to weave your cord, all you do is you go from one side to the other, and then up and then over, and you just keep doing that. Pretty soon you'll come up to the corner, then you'll come down, and you'll just go under and over and under and over, just like weaving. Come back down, do the same thing. When you get the whole thing finished, you'll end up with a knot. You'll tie a knot in it. What I did over here is I just tied it, and then I put a piece of tape over it just so that it doesn't loosen up while I'm drying things. I did find a way to make this fit pretty snug, and it was kind of by accident. I was lucky. I made it so that the flange of my angle would just kind of fit down in the door groove, and then I was able to make it just the right size so that it fit underneath what used to be the door latch here that latched the door closed, and that keeps it pretty solid. But you don't have to do that. You could use sticky back Velcro to stick it on place, or you could even wrap a cord the whole way around the dryer just to keep it in place. It doesn't have to be complicated. To run a load of laundry, all you have to do is toss your clothes in, put your net door in place. If you're using a net door, you don't have to, but I do on this dryer. Set your fan in place. Turn on the dryer. Turn on the fan. And that's it, you're done. Until the clothes are dry. When your load is dry, all you need to do is turn off the fan. Move the fan out of the way. Take out your net door if you used one, and take out your clothes. The towels are as fluffy as they would be coming out of a dryer indoors. This method's also better for delicate clothes because there's no heat involved, just dry air. So that's another benefit. When you're done, remember to close the door so you don't get debris inside. Clean out the screen like you would with a dryer, and that's it, you're done. So this project cost me nothing but a little time. It was really kind of fun, so I hope you give it a try. Thanks for watching.